The conflict in the Middle East, significantly influenced by the actions of Iranian-backed proxy groups like the Houthis, is a multifaceted geopolitical issue that encompasses historical sectarian divisions, strategic economic interests, and the region's complex political landscape. Iran, predominantly a Shia nation, has often been at odds with Sunni-majority countries such as Saudi Arabia, which wields considerable influence over key aspects like oil trade and international diplomatic relations, particularly with Western powers and Israel. The conflict in the Middle East, significantly influenced by the actions of Iranian-backed proxy groups like the Houthis, is a multifaceted geopolitical issue that encompasses historical sectarian divisions, strategic economic interests, and the region's complex political landscape. The strategic and ideological rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia has deep historical roots, with both nations vying for regional supremacy. This contest extends into various arenas, including the religious sphere where Shia and Sunni ideologies clash, the political domain where influence over Islamic nations is contested, and the economic sector, especially concerning control over oil resources and trade routes. Iran's support for the Houthi movement in Yemen is part of this larger narrative. By funding and arming the Houthis, Iran seeks to establish a foothold in the Arabian Peninsula, challenge Saudi dominance, and create leverage in international politics. The Houthis have leveraged this support to launch attacks on critical infrastructure and commercial shipping lanes in the Red Sea, including the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, threatening one of the global economy's vital arteries. The Houthis have plunged Yemen into a dire humanitarian crisis. The country, already the Arab world's poorest, has been devastated, with millions of civilians facing famine and disease. The conflict has also led to a large-scale displacement of people, further destabilizing the region. On the international stage, responses to the Houthi aggression and the broader Iran-Saudi rivalry have varied. Some global powers, alongside regional actors, have formed coalitions to militarily support the Saudi-led efforts against the Houthis. Others advocate for a political solution that would address not only the current conflict, but also the underlying issues that fuel such insurgencies. In addition to the political and military dimensions, there is a strong economic undercurrent to the conflict. Control over oil reserves and trade routes can significantly influence global markets. The attacks on Saudi oil facilities, for instance, not only affect the kingdom's economy, but also have the potential to disrupt global oil supplies and prices. Moving forward, a resolution to the ongoing conflict will require comprehensive engagement that considers the humanitarian needs of the Yemeni people, the legitimate security concerns of regional states, and the strategic interests of international stakeholders. Sustainable peace in Yemen and the broader Middle East will likely depend on a nuanced approach that involves inclusive political dialogue, economic cooperation, and respect for the sovereignty and diversity of nations within the region. The complexities of the region underscore the need for a multilateral approach, where diplomatic efforts are supported by robust peacekeeping mechanisms and a commitment to reconstruction and development, particularly in war-torn areas like Yemen. The persistent Houthi attacks on commercial vessels in the Red Sea and Arabian Sea are threatening to further destabilize the Middle Eastern region. The international community, spearheaded by an American-led task force that includes India, is seriously addressing this conflict due to its potential to inflict widespread economic harm. The Houthi force, bolstered by Iranian ideology and support, is primarily focused on disrupting global peace. The long-term repercussions of their actions might exceed even what the Iranian leadership has foreseen. Should the Houthis suffer defeat in Yemen, the subsequent course of action they might take is concerning and uncertain. Currently, they receive substantial support from Iran in the form of weapons, military training, and financial aid. If this support were to be cut off following a defeat, it is possible they would retreat to Iran, seeking asylum. This scenario is reminiscent of the aftermath in Pakistan with the Taliban, who, after being trained and armed to take control in Afghanistan, turned against Pakistan when financial support waned. They have since launched attacks within Pakistan, targeting strategic sites, including military and civilian infrastructures. There is a risk that a similar fate could await the Houthis if they find themselves ousted from Yemeni territory and cut off from Iranian assistance. The Houthi movement, officially known as Ansar Allah, supporters of God, is a Shia Islamist political and military organization that originated in the Saada Governorate of Yemen in the 1990s. It is predominantly composed of Zaidi Shias and is led by members of the Houthi family. The movement emerged as an opposition force to Yemen's then president Ali Abdullah Saleh, accusing him of corruption and undue influence from Saudi Arabia and the United States. The roots of the Houthi movement can be traced back to the establishment of a Zaidi polity in northern Yemen in 893 CE. The Zaidis, under the leadership of an imam, remained a dominant political force in the region. However, the overthrow of the imam in 1962 and the establishment of the Yemen Arab Republic led to the marginalization of the Zaidi community. The injection of Wahhabi ideas in the 1970s further challenged Zaidi doctrines and authority. In response to this marginalization, a Zaidi awakening occurred in the 1980s, marked by the embrace of Shi'i symbols distinct from Wahhabi Sunni Islam. Following the unification of Yemen in 1990, Zaidi elites formed the Al-Haq party to represent Zaidi interests and resist Wahhabi influence. Hussein Badr al-Din al-Houthi, a charismatic figure from Al-Haq, later fostered the Believing Youth Network, which initially received government support but grew increasingly critical of President Saleh's regime. The Houthi insurgency began in 2004, following the Yemeni government's attempt to arrest Hussein al-Houthi. After his death, the leadership of the movement passed to his brother, Abdul Malik al-Houthi. The movement's followers were driven by factors including economic development, the end of political marginalization of Zaidi Shias, and regional political religious issues. Iran's support for the Houthi movement in Yemen, which likely began around 2009, has evolved significantly over time. Initially, this support was relatively marginal and increased in response to the weakening of the Yemeni state after 2011. The intensification of Iran's involvement coincided with the Houthis expanding their power and taking over the capital Sana'a in 2014. The major turning point in Iran-Houthi relations was the Saudi-led military intervention in Yemen in 2015. Iran's support has been crucial in enhancing the Houthi movement's military capabilities. This includes the provision of small arms, advanced weapons, and technical assistance, often through complex smuggling networks. Iran's role involves not just supplying weapons, but also offering technical support, often facilitated by Hezbollah and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The growth of the Houthi movement, however, is not solely attributable to Iranian aid. Much of the Houthi arsenal is locally generated, including arms obtained from the Yemeni military and the black market. The Houthis have also capitalized on the weaknesses of their adversaries, including the Yemeni government and the Saudi-led coalition. The relationship between Iran and the Houthis is complex. While Iran has significantly supported the Houthis, the group maintains a degree of independence and does not operate strictly under Iranian command. The Houthis have their own history, grievances, and agenda, which align with but are not dictated by Iran. Iran's support for the Houthis must be viewed within the larger context of its foreign policy, which involves supporting a network of non-state actors across the Middle East. The Houthis have become an increasingly important element in this network, enhancing Iran's ability to project power in the region. The ongoing conflicts involving Israel, Hamas, the Houthi attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea, and Hezbollah's rocket attacks on Israel might escalate into a more significant war in the Middle East. This potential escalation could draw in various oil and gas-producing Arab and GCC nations, potentially reaching a more critical phase. There's a possibility of an attack on Iran, which could be backed by American and allied forces. Meanwhile, Iran faces internal strife and public dissent against its religious government. Issues like the hijab controversy, amplified by Mahsa Amini's death, have fueled protests, with the youth and students demanding changes to the regime. Notably, during the recent World Cup in Qatar, some Iranians showed support for the American team, reflecting a significant shift in public sentiment against their government. If a larger conflict does break out, this change in public opinion might lead to Iranian support for American-led forces.